go. Money Talk.
Hello and welcome to the Financial Fitness Bunny podcast, your number one stop shop to all things money management. My name is Nicolette Mashile. I am your host and I'm also known as the Financial Bunny, and I'm here to put lipstick on that money pig. Again this week, we're doing things quite differently, so instead of the book review, we've got a guest in studio. Today I have Michael Field, who's the General Manager of Investments at Fed Group. So it's another episode of Yes, Money Does Matter. And today we're speaking about the value of financial education and, of course, financial advice. Now, in his own words, Michael says, while I'm diligent in the design of products, I keep it simple because investments are inherently simple and complexity is often used as an excuse to hide things. I continuously strive to deliver products that offer value for all parties involved and not just those who build them. I like that. I absolutely like that because I find sometimes when you confuse people, they really do get confused. Michael, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Right? People often get very confused when it comes to investment products. Why do you think that is?
So it's something a little bit different to what they're used to. I think maybe some of it comes from the sort of stigma of money. And I think often people are ashamed to recognize when they don't know or to admit.
Yes.
And so they sort of go along with it rather than ask the questions they need to ask.
But you don't know what you don't know, right?
No.
So you won't look for it.
No, well, yes and no. So I think for me, it's so important you need to understand whatever it is that you're involved with. And if you don't understand, ask. If we're talking about a provider, if they can't explain it to you in a way that you can understand, that's their problem.
I always say your what's it called, litmus test. I mean, I guess probably not right. Litmus test. If you can't explain to a 6-year-old, you probably just don't understand it. But let's get into the importance of financial education. In your opinion, why is it important?
The world runs on money.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, that's the world we live in. If you don't understand how these things work, you're living life with a hand tied behind your back. Whether it's banks or a financial institution, whether it's your employer, a politician, whoever, these guys are going to talk past you. They're going to bamboozle you. We need to understand the world we live in.
And who do you think has that responsibility to educate? I mean, if you, so I wrote a kiddies book, and while I was writing the kiddies book to do a bit of research, I went into the curriculum, and surprisingly, it's there. It is in the curriculum. I mean, from grade 4 to 6, it's in their life skills. They teach them about opening up a savings account, tax, entrepreneurship, but the teachers don't know how to teach it. So whose responsibility is it to educate?
I'm going to give you a controversial answer.
Okay.
I think, so often we talk, it's the responsibility of government, the schools, it's teachers.
Yeah.
It's the financial services industry. Sure, there's a lot they can do. There's always more they can do. My view, it's a responsibility of everyone to educate themselves, to understand these things. You're not going to learn something if you don't want to learn it. I think your personal story of how you became involved in the financial world and that critical step was recognizing there was things you didn't know. There's so much free information out there. It's go out and start understanding. I think that responsibility is on everyone. I think also importantly, and we touched on it earlier, there's this perception, wealthy people know all this stuff. People with fancy degrees know all this stuff.
Yeah.
In my experience, they don't know any more than the average person, generally speaking. But often they're actually the worst off because they're so proud.
Yes.
They won't admit it.
Yes, confidence bias.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, that's so true, because if you actually just think about it, we often think people who studied finance should understand, but personal finance is more than just what they study. I mean, they do a lot of corporate finance most of the time. So it's
accounting,
not actual.
But economics, it's not. Yeah.
All right, let's speak about whether or not you feel there's a distinction between financial education and advice.
Yeah, I mean, they're clearly related, but it's, in some ways, it's like a teach a man to fish, give a man a fish type of argument, except I think you need both. So advice is so valuable to help you understand and see your flaws and, you know, go beyond whatever it is you know. But if you know more, you can understand what you're being told. You can ask those right questions. This is what I do for a living. I have a financial advisor.
Oh, fantastic.
That's not, in my example, so much to explain products to me.
Yeah.
It's to help me remove my personal biases or my emotion. You know, investing is very emotional, but it shouldn't be. You have to try and remove that. So, yeah, two sides of a coin, both equally important.
We're actually having that conversation with the podcast with Namzamo to say, how do I not be emotional? It's my money. I've worked hard for it, you know? So I like the fact that you're offering that buffer for yourself to say, I need someone else, another set of eyes, another set of emotions that is totally unrelated to my money.
Yeah.
Because you're a financial planner. Yes, they want you to succeed, but they don't have the same emotional investment as you. Right?
Yeah. And sometimes that's to their benefit.
Yeah.
They can see clearly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So financial products in this country. Let's talk a little bit about the funeral cover. Probably one of the most loved, advertised, explained to death, and people bought into it.
Yeah.
Whereas probably people would need more of a life cover, you know, with a funeral cover. I find that it's also the similar with banking products.
Yeah.
People seem to rely on banking products. How do you think the banking sector got that right?
Well, they got it right for their own view.
Okay.
I like to say banking investment type products, or many of the things beyond the transactional banking. I say it's like fast food.
Horses for courses.
So no, so
what do
what
you mean?
I mean there, it's convenient.
Of course.
It's expensive.
Yes.
It's not very good for you. So it's people are using them because they've got that relationship.
Yes.
It's sort of your first step into the financial world is a bank account. You know, you get your first real job, they're going to put in a bank account. So that has to be your first product. Hopefully you start trying to save. You're already there. It's easier. The banks know this, and so often their rates are lower. Their returns are lower. Whatever it is, because they don't have to overcome, you know, that critical eye of a customer. They're not paying as much attention. There's so much more to the industry. The banks have that advantage and they use it. But
then don't you think it's a problem? Because one thing you just spoke about is that they're leveraging off the relationship that is kind of the initial start for anyone's financial journey, right? But what we're also seeing now is retailers are going into financial services. So they too have that advantage of, I mean, if I'm using, and I'll be very frank, Vodacom has got Vodacom Financial Services now. We don't know the extent of how far their product offering will go. It could go where you guys are.
Yep.
So how do you get actual financial services sector, your guys, the investment guys, to build and nurture that relationship so that people do believe that you probably are the right people to go to?
Yeah. So I think it comes to building that long-term trust. We've seen too many, and you know well, I'm very critical of our industry.
Yes.
But, you know, when people see products that don't work for them and, you know, ShopRite come out with some of these sort of products, they're going to try something new. They're going to see how it works. I think at the same time, if those guys are doing a better job than the financial services industry, good luck to them.
Yeah.
If they're genuinely helping clients, good luck to them. If they're doing better than a 100-year-old insurer or bank, why should the public owe them any loyalty? At the same time, we're a specialist financial services company and add more value. It's up to us to show that we're adding more value, to be seen by that client. Word of mouth is king.
Absolutely.
The days of trusting a big brand because you know it, it's still a thing. It's less of a thing. Social media, all of that, that's what counts.
Look, I mean, I always say it's such a different landscape for you guys to maneuver right now, as you mentioned, with, your digitals, the social medias, and everybody, at least we've got some level of awakening, it feels, of financial education, people trying to get educated, and financial wellness and all of that. And I guess for many of the financial institutions, that's probably a great place to start, is, offer people the education, and they'll probably, become your loyal customer. Let's talk about the value of good financial advice. What does it look like?
Yeah, very valuable.
Yeah,
I'm a big proponent of advice. I talked about some of the basic elements. I think there's often this sort of stigma almost. We live in a world where so much is free.
Yeah.
And to sort of go and talk to someone about what product to buy. We do that in almost no other industry. I don't pay someone to tell me which car I should be buying.
That's true. That's true.
Or which TV is the right one. I go online, have a look, and I make a decision, or I walk in store, whatever it is. And so financial advice is this anomaly. Add to that I'm talking about money. No one likes talking about money. Maybe you do. But not personal money.
Yeah.
And so, an advisor, for me, we need to put those things aside. We need to accept that we're going to pay for this advice. And at the end of the day, if I get myself into a product or invested better, it's not just investment, make sure my insurance cover is adequate, not excessive, not too little. I can save so much money. I can add so much wealth. Why wouldn't I pay someone for that? As long as I'm not paying them excessively, 1%, 0.5% per year, that's what you should be paying for advice. If guys are taking 3% or, something like that, then be a little bit wary.
Yeah.
Are they adding that much more value? So pay for it, get good advice, understand who your advisor is. What are their credentials? Who pays their salary?
True.
Are they employed by a provider? Are they really independent? But good advice is really, really valuable. Allows you to take on these products beyond just your current level of understanding. For me, we're talking education. It's a never-ending journey. We're always learning more.
True.
Our needs are always changing.
Absolutely.
When you just got your first job, you don't own a car. You're not paying off a car. You're not paying a bond. Your life is pretty simple. You're putting away a bit of money to cover, whatever little thing. As you move through that journey,
your different life stages.
Help someone bridge that gap for you.
I'm just wondering, Michael. I'm wondering. My brain wanders a lot. Maybe if you can give me a picture of what the financial advisory landscape looks like in South Africa. I'm just thinking, without employer groups, how would we have? I mean, already it feels like there's not enough people who have a financial advisor.
Yeah.
But if we were to take away the employer groups, you think South Africans are in the culture of understanding the importance of financial advice?
No, they're definitely not.
Sure.
I think I see a lot of reluctance to take responsibility for our own decisions, particularly in a space like this. and I don't know if it's coming from I don't understand, so I don't want to go there. Whereas it should be the opposite. It should be this is something so important. I need to take the time to understand it.
True.
In many ways, it's been made quite daunting. You get an insurance contract.
It's 50 pages long. Why?
This is what I do for a living.
Yeah.
I can't understand those things.
Yes.
So in many ways, it's artificially daunting.
Yeah.
And so people sort of shy away from it. We don't like things that we're not good at.
Yeah.
That's why I don't like going to gym.
You and me both. Yeah.
So yeah, I think too often people are reluctant. They almost say, well, if I don't make a decision, at least I haven't made a wrong decision.
Yeah.
The reality is you've taken a decision regardless, even if your decision was to do nothing.
There's actually a behavioral word for it. It's a bias. I was actually reading about it that day that the error of not taking a decision is better than taking one and making an error.
Yeah.
It's crazy how we are as human beings.
We're not rational.
Sure. Now, you guys have launched a new product. It's your endowment fund.
Yes.
And I want to use it to kind of demonstrate what it would look like in the absence of financial advice. If one just decided, you know what, I'm jumping onto Fair Group and I'm just grabbing that endowment fund. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think maybe just to explain, so an endowment is quite a unique instrument.
Yeah.
It's a way of accessing an investment. And for the right client, it's fantastic.
Absolutely.
It offers so many benefits. It's very tax efficient. It's very good for your estate. It helps look after those you leave behind. It's some liquidity. But if you're not in that right band of people that it's suitable for, it can be quite damaging. A person could end up paying twice as much tax as they should.
Sure.
By using that vehicle, if it's not suitable for them.
Okay, hold on. Maybe let's take it a couple of steps back. Let's explain what is an endowment fund.
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Cool. So an endowment is an investment policy. It's normally issued by a life insurer.
Okay.
It's a little bit strange. Why is a life insurer running investments? We're not going to get into that complexity. What it means is that investment is taxed differently.
Okay.
So if we use the example of an individual, it's taxed at a flat 30% in the current environment. So if you have a person paying an 18% tax rate and they're going to be paying at 30%, they're paying way more tax than they should.
Oh, so it needs to be those people that are already
So the guys who, those guys at the 45%.
the 1% of South Africa.
Those guys.
Yes.
So that's what I say. So it's quite a niche product. And for that correct client, and by the way, the tax is one element of it, but it's maybe the easiest example of where it can be used incorrectly.
Yes.
And so for us, when we built that product, we said we're only going to have people take up that product if it's come with advice.
I love that. Yeah.
And it's quite a unusual step.
Yes.
Because, if a client comes to us direct, we're going to turn them away, or at the very least, we're going to point them towards an advisor.
Yes.
But, I talked about that need to build that long-term trust. It's our belief that client will come and thank us for it one day, even if they might be upset in the moment. And frankly, I'd far rather have that client who ends up wealthier in the long run.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I like that. I think that kind of explains quite a lot, because we do see often. I mean, I have a big issue with lenders.
Yeah.
And if I had my way, I would make all South Africans take some sort of credit license before they can take up credit. The same way we have to get a driver's permit, I feel like you must get a credit permit, because I'm telling you, people buy homes with personal loans.
I've never heard that as a concept, but I love it.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I just feel like, how are you? And also just interest rates. People don't understand them, you know? So it would be for me, that's important. I think that's what this is also about. The endowment is you've got to get someone to give you the advice to understand whether or not you are the investor profile or not.
Yeah.
And if you're not, let it go, you know? So I absolutely love that. Let's talk a little bit about financial education and inclusion. Do you think their cause and what's the other cause and
Effect.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So I think if you can understand all the tools available to you is maybe another way of talking about it. You can achieve a lot more. At the same time, if you can understand the pitfalls of not using things or using things, I mean, your example on credit is a great one. Debt used correctly can help to build wealth. Yeah. But used irresponsibly, it's a trap. And know too many examples of where that's happening. So I think the more you can grow, and again for me, education in this financial sense, you've never arrived. Yeah. And no small step is too small. Yep. To keep building, to keep doing more. Absolutely. I didn't know that. So I cashed out so I had 2 tax-free savings shares accounts, and I didn't want to transfer because I was like, you know what, I can use this money. So I tried to withdraw the one with all of the information I have. I didn't know that and it's a logical step. You got to sell first, you know. I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't know that. And that's what you're saying about education. You almost are learning something new every single day. Yeah, and I think start with the basics. Yeah, you know, even just knowing things like if someone's quoting an interest rate on an investment, that's not an annual rate. Yeah, beware. I'm sure you guys are fighting. If they see, if someone's offering you a weekly interest rate or a monthly interest rate, or they're going to double your money, run away. We've seen digital banks do that now. Where they'll say, you got a rate for 3 months or something, and then I'm like, it's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. And the other one I see is people picking their own shares. Yeah. That one scares me. Please, I picked braids, and let me tell you, I know never to do it again. Yeah, and I think it's at the same time, go for it. Yeah. Play, learn, but do it with a small fraction of your money. Yeah. You know, I run an investment team in a financial services group. 2% of my investments are shares that I pick. Yeah. But then, okay, hold on. Now, in the spirit of democratizing investing, especially in the stock market, we know it's always been through a stockbroker, and some people they say they couldn't access a stockbroker. So we've got platforms now that exist. Yep. Now there you can do whatever you can do it yourself. Yep. So how do you strike the balance from DIY? Yeah. And also not making it inaccessible to people? So I think the fact that it's accessible is great. Absolutely. I think if you see the number of people that are, let's say, experimenting, that's what I hope they're doing. That is a great step. No, we're putting our real money in there, Michael. Don't tell us we're experimenting. No, but so it's a fantastic step to start learning about these businesses, and you learn about the difference between, you know, a share price growing and the dividends. Absolutely. You learn about how a business works. Why did that share price drop? And you start learning a bit about what's happening on the income statement, or that business had too much debt. Yes. So it's a great tool that you're learning all of these sorts of things. Yeah. Where I think it can be dangerous is you're operating in a market with rooms and buildings full of guys looking at that full time. Yes. And that's why I don't pick my own stocks. Yes. Because I walk into a board meeting, I'm sat for 3 hours. Yeah. A lot happens in 3 hours on the stock market. Absolutely. obviously where it's a lot more long term, and so I think it's fantastic. Back to your point that it is accessible. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah.
I think people should just beware of thinking they know best. Everyone's after that one share, or if I had only bought Facebook.
By the time
if I had only, a lot of that value is
too late.
and often even by the time it hits the stock market,
yes,
a lot of that value has already been taken.
Yeah. It's so funny because I always identify some of my audiences who watch my stuff. We'll talk about, okay, there's platforms where you can buy individual stocks and whatever. And I often find that the guys who truly are looking to go into this journey, at some point they stop and they say to me, okay, but which stocks do I pick? How do I put together the strategy? The ones that just go ahead and pick, I'm always like, no, you're not serious about investing. You don't care what your money is going. So there's a whole lot of education we actually still need to do for those people. Yeah, that's what I often see. Behavioral finance, man.
Yes.
We often say it's 80% your behavior, 20% what you know. And I see me. I mean, I've got a very silly example. I had left my credit card with someone who I didn't really trust, and then I transferred the full amount to my check account, missed the billing date, put it back, and of course, what do? They charge you for the outstanding, on a daily average. Yeah. And I was like, but I knew this. How did I fall into? And I realized it was my emotion of not trusting this person. So it made me have this irrational behavior.
Yeah.
And that's human beings, right?
Yeah.
So what are your comments around? Do you think we need to educate more, or do we need to focus on educating to change behavior?
So I think it's the latter. I think it's that education, and I think it almost naturally, so it's not so much highlighting that behavior. It's just as people become better educated, understand better, they're going to start asking questions.
But Michael, doesn't he want to behave better?
Not always.
Yeah.
So that's where your advisor can sometimes save you.
Yes.
But again, you can use the right product to save you from yourself.
True.
A lot of people, a retirement fund is about saving me from myself. It's been a hard year. I think I deserve a holiday. But at least I'm saving myself from myself.
Yeah.
And you can use term investments to do that. A lot of people, you even use a stokvel. Use some of that peer pressure to make sure I'm saving every month. So that behavior, I think, is really important. But for me, the most important thing is don't be ashamed. Say you don't know.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
If you don't understand, say you don't understand.
Yeah.
I met with someone on a product the other day. Guy's an actuary, talking about a product in the market offered by a really big player.
Yeah.
It was going to double your money.
And
I said, I don't understand this.
Yeah.
I spent a week
trying to figure it out.
Understanding that product. That particular product, the client's not going to win 96% of the time.
Sure.
And
so 4%. The
roughly
probability of
the client actually coming out ahead.
That's a terrible probability.
And that was because I said, I don't understand this product.
Yeah.
Now, we talk about, it might be embarrassing to say you don't understand. Try being the head of an investment company and saying, I don't understand this product.
Yeah.
But I didn't understand it. And I unpacked it and it didn't work. Now, obviously, I have the luxury. I can call on my peers and I can get to the bottom of it. But for most people, just walk away. Yeah. There is plenty product out there that's plenty simple, that does exactly what you need. I think you mentioned it in the intro there. That complexity, someone's put it there.
For a reason.
It's not necessary. Ask yourself, why would an insurer or an investment company, why are they adding complexity?
Yeah.
And remember what you're investing for.
Yeah.
You're investing for wealth, for your long term, for your retirement. your children's education, not a free smoothie.
Not a free smoothie.
Not a free smoothie.
I like that. I've got 2 more questions before I let you go.
Yeah, sure.
I saw when we started this podcast, Michael was actually showing me a picture of his 2 kids. If you were to say to your 2 kids, this is the most valuable piece of financial education they need to learn, what would it be?
So it's so interesting you bring that up. I was just having a look at my kids' unit trust statement.
Okay. So your kids have unit trust statements?
Within a week of them being born, I opened a unit trust investment for them.
Wow.
And I contribute to that every month.
Wow.
And I was very fortunate. My parents did the same for me when I was about 10 years old.
Wow.
So starting early.
Yeah.
Start this journey, start learning. I remember my mother would make me diligently, back then we got paper statements.
Wow.
And I had a file that I kept all these statements, and it meant very little to me.
Yes.
But the lesson I learned is save every month.
Absolutely.
And I forget exactly which study it was, but they looked at what are the factors in common with wealthy people.
Yeah.
And, it's background and education and career and which country, all the different factors. And the biggest factor in common was, did you save last month? The people that said yes.
Are the wealthy guys.
They were so it's that discipline.
Sure.
For me, that is so start early.
Yeah.
And save every month. Even if it's $100. You have to be saving tons of money every single month.
You literally took the $100 out of my head. What I really was going to ask you was to price to how much do you contribute for your kids.
Yeah.
But I figured it's probably, it doesn't have to be a huge amount because you've got the value of time, right?
Yeah. So my daughter is not yet 4.
Yeah.
And she's already a year ahead just on those contributions.
Sure. That is amazing. And if you read the book Compounding Effect by, I think it's Darren Hardy, that's the first thing he actually says. He said, your life is literally made up of compounding.
Yeah.
And if you're just consistent and you just keep going and you set that rule for yourself, it starts off becoming second nature. So you don't feel like it's a rule anymore. Yeah. But it pays off.
Yeah. So this is why I like to say these things are simple. Did I spend more than I earned?
Yeah.
Today,
which is
this
the money
week,
rule.
this month, this year.
Yes.
If I go year after year spending more than I earned, I'm going backwards.
Yeah.
I like to say investing is giving myself a raise for the future.
I like that. Oh, I like that. Yeah.
As long as that money is invested, it is growing.
And it's yours.
And it's mine.
Yes.
And every time I see I made another 200 Rand in interest or gains or whatever it might be.
That's a win.
That's my extra little bit of salary.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be complicated.
I like that. I think I'm gonna steal that and use that. I don't know if I'll reference you all the time, but I'll try. Because often we say pay yourself first. Yeah. Which is not landing. Because every time I say in fact, yesterday I was speaking to university students, final year med students, and I was like, okay guys, so first lesson is pay yourself first. And then they're like, oh, must we take care of our needs? Like, we need to save and invest. So giving yourself a future raise sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I like that. Another question. Your partner.
Yeah.
What is the one, or your friends, what is the one money thing that you guys disagree on? My friends, partner, family, that's one thing that you guys
disagree on.
Yes.
Sure. Those conversations are always tricky. Because of what I do for a living, I have to give a disclaimer. This is not financial advice. What do we disagree on?
Yeah.
I think probably almost linking back to some of what we were saying earlier with just go with the bank.
Yeah.
Just go with the big name institution.
Yeah.
And I think I have that advantage of I probably know more institutions than those guys have ever come across. And True. And I've had the advantage of understanding what their products are doing and all that sort of thing. So yeah, that's probably the one big one is, a lot of the guys talk about, trust the name and some of that sort of thing.
It's not going anywhere.
It's a careful thing to say, don't do that, because there's a lot of scams and that sort of thing. So go with a trusted name. I think what I'm saying is don't assume because it's a big name that everything's above board, or maybe above board's not the right thing to say, but that it's optimal.
Absolutely.
It's
I like that. I like the use of optimal, because ultimately, I think, and many people do this. I would do financial coaching for clients from an education perspective, and they'll have so many products. I say to them, what are these products for? Do you actually know? No, but you guys told us we must invest. I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't mean just pick an investment, So often you'll find that. Let's talk a little bit. I mean, you are, of course, the general manager of investments at Fed Group. Let's talk a little bit about Fed Group and what you guys believe in. So maybe tell us a little bit about Fed Group.
Sure.
And then what you guys believe in.
Cool. Yeah, so we've been around since 1990. So, we've got a nice track record. But since day one, it's been about simple product. And simple in terms of, for a client to understand, it is simple fee structures. It is even just the way we present it. So, for example, our application form for our investments, it's one page. It's not 30 pages, which is what you're typically going to find. It is literally one page, single-sided.
30 pages of jargon.
and then exactly that. If you look over the page, it's the T's and C's and all that. So there's the link to the full versions. But then we've got in plain English, what are we doing with your data?
Yes.
What does this mean? And so for us, it's keep it simple, talk plain language that people can understand. A little more broad than that, we focus on some more specialist areas of the market. So yes, we've got unit trust funds and all of that you expect. We have that full range. But for us, what's really important is some of these more niche products. So we look at a lot of what we're doing in the agriculture space. We're linked to real assets, generating real returns. And we're about cutting out non-value adding layers. So that means we are talking directly to the person that's adding the value. So what does that mean? It means the farmer.
Yeah, okay.
That guy's adding real value.
Yeah.
We're not going from one fund into another fund, into a fund of funds, onto a stock exchange, into someone else who's got a listed note, and they're all taking 15% worth of returns along the way.
Sure.
So for us, it's sort of short circuit, the guys who've got the money, who are adding the value, keep it simple. That's what we're about. Then it's, find the optimal way of offering it to them. We talked about the endowment earlier. That's a fantastic vehicle for your more sort of high net worth type of client. At the same time, we've got other products ultimately going into those same underlying assets, available from 500 Rand.
Oh, okay.
So that's a product that is optimized for that client. In between, we've got other products from maybe a 5,000 Rand. We've got product that is fixed. So for 5 years, you know exactly what you're going to get down to the cent. Very secure, very low risk. We have some other product which is going to expose you to a little bit more risk, a little bit more return. Make sure you take that longer term view. That is, I know we're jumping around a little bit, but coming back to the advice, I think often some of the best advice people can get is making sure they're taking the right amount of risk. A lot of people take too much risk, but actually a lot of people don't take enough risk. The power of compounding is fantastic, but if you're in a bank account, if you're earning 2%, actually you're not even keeping up with inflation.
Sure, I was about
you
to
need
say.
to take a little bit more risk.
Yeah, at this point with inflation flaring,
Yeah.
you're doing absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
It's quite scary, right?
It is.
Sure. Michael, you've been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, thanks so much. Been great to be here.
Yeah, we definitely also going to have Michael on a YouTube video where we're going to go into a little bit more in depth of some of the stuff that they do at Fate Group. I know one thing I can tell you about Michael. He is not Andy Hart's favorite person because Andy Hart believes in stock market, investing in the great companies of the world. And Michael is like, okay. But we'll speak about that on the YouTube video. But you've been absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
All right, guys, thank you very much for tuning in to Yes, Money Does Matter. And I guess just from this episode, you know for a fact that your money does matter and you need to take care of it. So great financial education. And of course, the greatest value that you can derive from financial advice is making sure that somebody has another set of eyes and they're able to see and take out your emotions and help you to navigate so that you can reach those financial goals that you want to reach. I will see you guys on the next one. Do remember to tune into Financial Bunny TV on YouTube so you can catch other interesting and insightful money conversation. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.